Hello, everybody. Thanks for joining me for this bonus afternoon stream. We are just going to be doing a bunch of random stuff. I've been working on the game on and off this afternoon, mostly just working on sound effects and music. Alchemortis now has 3 full music tracks. So there's the main menu and first region music, and then there's the boss music, and then there is the second region music. The third region music is in progress right now. My friend's making that up. But anyway, I've just been spending time replacing sound effects, updating sound effects, adding sound effects, just generally trying to polish up the game before the playtest. Again, that playtest is coming out at the end of the month. So we'll say at the latest in 11 days. So I'm basically good with the game how it is. I'm just going through a bunch of bug fixing and polishing, and also just trying to add new content just here and there, so there's at least some new stuff for you all to play with. And yeah, for this stream, I think I've just got a bunch of random things that I want to do. I want to experiment with reworking the swarm ability because I think it's still too strong. And I also want to prevent multiple effect types and sounds from playing per frame. So those are the 2 major things that I want to get done on this stream, and maybe we'll do, if we have time, depending on how this goes, we can add some new content. But I definitely want to do this one. Now, I don't have the sound effects enabled, but in this case, the sound effects are tied to the visual effects. So I think if I just prevent this visual effect from playing multiple times, it'll prevent the sounds. But anyway, before we get too deep into it, I'm not going to do the formal full ad read, but just check out the links in the description below if you want to support the game. Again, the playtest that's happening at the end of the month will be available for 1 week early to Patreon members only. And then once the Patreon members get their week of exclusive access, it will be open for a week for anyone who wants to try it. So if you do end up supporting on Patreon, there's a number of good perks. Early access to the playtest is one of them. And so check that out. You can join the Discord as well. All the stuff is linked in the description below. Okay. Hello, A the Ant. Welcome, welcome. Hello, Chris. Welcome back. Just got back from the dentist. How did it go? I hope it went well. Sometimes dental appointments are very easy and sometimes they're very hard. Hello, Emerson. Yes, bonus stream. Welcome back. Hello, I'm Jacob, here for moral support while I am in meetings all day. Sorry about that. I did not enjoy meeting days when I was a full-time employee. Hello, Infinity01. Welcome back. Good to see you again. Been away for quite a while. How's it going? It's going well. It's going well. Welcome back to the stream. How are you doing? Got cavities filled. My mouth is numb. Ugh. Yeah, that's not fun. Okay. So yeah, I want to go to my VFX player. So if I go to my board, so here, effect player component, this effect player component, this is what's responsible for playing effects. So we've got this play effect for ability here. Play effect for ability. So notify ability executed. This is being done in the base card. Notify ability executed. So yeah, this is essentially what's playing these effects, and it's going to play effect for ability. So yeah, these are where the effects are played. So we've got the damage effect, position, damage effect, on status applied. Why am I doing effect type enum? Effect type enum. Whoops, what the heck did I just do? So this effect type enum determines what effect an ability plays. Which is all right, I guess, but I guess I don't really see a need to do it this way. Because what I could do is I could do base card ability is damage. But, oh well, we'll just stick with what I've got. Anyway. So essentially what can happen, so this is a holdover from the older version of the game. So previously in the game, when a card executed its turn, it would pause everything else on the board until it finished its animations. And I ultimately removed that. It just had all the cards execute at the same time because that just feels smoother. So if 2 cards were supposed to execute, like their turn cooldowns went to 0, the previous version would be, it would do the first card's effects and abilities, it would wait for those animations to finish, and then it would do the second one's effects and abilities. And now it's just all being done at once so that the time keeps flowing smoothly and there's no stuttering and all that stuff. But the side effect of that is that if I have, 4 damage abilities all happening at the same time, then I create 4 of these effects at once. And that just creates kind of just like overblown audio and visual effects that aren't necessary. So I think what I'm going to do, honestly, is I'm just going to private hash set base card ability dot effect type enum effects played this frame. We're just going to do this, and then what we could do is we could do effects played this frame dot add. Actually, maybe I'll just do this. I'll just always add it here. Base card ability dot effect type. And then what we're going to want to do is we're going to do private callable reset effects played this frame callable. Callable.from. Reset of effects played this frame. We're going to clear that. And then what I can do here is just do reset of .callable.call deferred there. So we'll call that in a deferred fashion. I also need to, I'm going to say if effects played this frame contains base card ability.effect type, then we're just going to return. So we won't do this multiple times. And then when we do add it to that effects played, we'll make sure to reset it in a deferred fashion. Is there a way to check if this is deferred? I don't necessarily want to queue up a bunch of... Well, I guess it doesn't matter. Yeah, that should be fine. I guess if I do multiple effects in one frame, it's going to call this a bunch of times, but I don't really think that matters. Okay, then on status applied, I'm going to want to do the same thing. I'm going to want to do the same thing here. So we're going to do private callable reset status statuses apply to this frame callable. Private read-only hash set. And we'll just do type statuses applied this frame. Reset statuses applied this frame. Reset statuses applied this frame. Okay. All right. If is auto-resolving or statuses applied this frame contains status.getType, we'll just return statuses applied this frame dot add status.getType. Can I do this? Oh, maybe that does work. We'll just make it consistent with what I've done up there. Cool. All right, then. And then I need to do reset status is applied this frame callable.call deferred. Cool. So how am I going to test this? I guess what I will do is let's just put a bunch of skeletons on the board, I suppose. Okay. Guess we'll try it out. Hello, Bubblegum Lord. Welcome back. Good to see you. My game jam this time sucks. I should make it better next time. Well, that's the beauty of game jams, is that you learn very rapidly. I think the feedback loop is very rapid. So instead of spending 6 months making a game and finding out that it's not that great, you instead spend a week or 48 hours or whatever making a game to find out that it's not that good. And then you can learn from that. So I think for me personally, game jams, I've had a number of like disappointing game jams where I was really excited about my idea and then the end result was just kind of like not that good. But I learned from all those experiences, and now I'm able to more consistently create fun games, at least for game jams, although I still do create duds here and there. But that's just how it goes, I think. And don't beat yourself up too much about it, because that's how you get better. Okay. So let's go into a combat here. Again, I'm not going to be able to test the sound effects. I mean, I could, but I'd have to change a bunch of my stream settings. So we're just going to focus on looking at the effects and making sure that it's just playing one damaging effect when the skeletons all go. Yeah, that looks nicer. So now that's going to produce a lot less visual noise, and it's going to produce a lot less sound effects like overlapping each other, which can sound very messy. So that should be a lot cleaner. I definitely want to do some more work on the visual effects generally in this game. I think a lot of the effects are a little bit lackluster. I was doing some playtesting today with the sound effects, and I think I need like a more dramatic entrance into the game, and maybe the combat effects can be made a little bit more better. But for now, it's all right. I also want to try this with a status effect just to make sure that this is all working properly. So we shouldn't see multiple poison vials being dropped either. So we're basically just grouping those effects, essentially, is what's happening here. Got to get through all this. Okay, let's see what happens here. Yeah, that looks much nicer. So instead of having 4 different poison vials coming down, it's just one. So that should improve the visual clarity. And that's only, again, that's only for abilities that apply poison on the same frame. So all of these applying poison together, they get grouped into a single poison effect instead of 4 different ones. If I would have, if I just stash this change here, stash changes, and I were to go again, then it's going to be a little bit messy from an audio and visual perspective. So we'll go here. Then we go here. So if you look at this, yeah, we get just like 4 poison vials coming down. It just looks kind of messy. So anyway, that's why I made that change. All right. That is done. So we can go ahead and move that over. Done. Let's work on some reworking of Swarm here. What's the icon at the bottom when you drag the map around? That is a little compass. It's basically just a recenter map button. So previously the only way to recenter the map on your player was using spacebar. So if I go out here and I press spacebar, but in the interest of making this game playable with only a mouse, there's a button here that appears when the camera leaves the player. And that is the recenter camera. Actually, I might make a change to that. Tween dot, whoops. Interval tween equals create tween. Tween, no. Interval tween dot tween interval. We'll just give it like a 1 second delay. And we'll do interval tween dot tween action. And we're going to do this. Shoot. Well, this is probably not going to work, but so we've got the interval tween here on FreeCam exited. If interval tween is valid equals true, then we want to do interval tween dot custom step no. Interval tween dot kill clickable control dot remove input lock. I don't know if that's going to work, but we'll see. It only behaves a bit strange when you were just doing it for a short move, which threw me off. Maybe a slight delay. Yeah. We're on the same page. I'm adding a little bit of a delay now, so it doesn't appear right after you move the map. So there's a 1 second delay now. So you have time to just like look before this thing grabs your attention. I'm just trying to make sure that I can't break it, that's all. There we go. That seems to work. Yeah, that works. Is callable the same as an action in C#? I haven't seen that before. Yeah. If you think like, so callable is Godot's implementation of an action, I guess you could say. A callable is essentially a reference to a function, and then the callable can be passed around, right? So functions are, I think functions are callables by default in Godot 4. I'm not exactly sure, but yeah, callable is basically a function. So you can pass the callable around as arguments or whatever. You can also call it in a deferred way. So I would say, yeah, it's very similar to how actions work in C#. The thing about callables, though, the reason why I have to use a callable here instead of using an action is because I need to be able to hook into Godot and tell Godot only execute this during idle time. So after the current frame is done processing, then call these functions. So I can defer those function calls only by hooking into Godot's API so that Godot can call them during the proper, sequence of events. I can't do that with an action directly because I don't have any information on the C# layer about where at in the life cycle of a frame Godot is. So that's why I just need to like wrap those in callables so I can call those deferred But at the end of the day, these are just pointing to actions essentially as well. Actually, let's take a look. Yeah, see, so the static method callable from in the Godot API, this accepts an action as an argument. So you pass an argument, or you pass an action in there, the callable basically wraps that action, and then, yeah, you could call it deferred. Nice, polish, yeah, I think it's better. Hello, Jagged Daytona. It's time for Game Dev once again. Yes, indeed. Yes, it is. Okay. Now we're going to take a look at something a little bit more complicated. We're going to rework Swarm a little bit. I'm still not happy with how Swarm works, but we brainstormed an idea today that I think is going to work really well. So right now, what Swarm is doing is it's just executing an entirely different card. It's executing an entirely different card. Sorry, any card that has Swarm on it will be executed in its entirety again. So the problem with Swarm is that it's super powerful, because if you can get Swarm on a card that has like 10 abilities and just get something else that's small and can trigger it a bunch of times, like that can be fun for sure, but it's very easy for that to get out of control. And so I think my options are to either make Swarm very rare such that anytime you use it, it's basically going to be a huge DPS output, or we're going to take this new approach, I think, which is to wrap individual abilities with a Swarm modifier, and then any ability which has Swarm on it will be executed when another ability with Swarm on it executes. So now instead of being at the card level, it's going to be at the ability level. And so if you want a bunch of abilities to execute because of a Swarm triggering it, then you need to have multiple abilities with that Swarm modifier on it. You're welcome, Fireglue. You're welcome. So, how are we going to do this? So this goes to add card to rerun execution list. I'm going to change... I think I can borrow conditional ability decorator. Maybe not. Well, let's just start and see what happens. So we'll do new file, Swarm decorator. Okay. I feel like SpongeBob right now, where I'm just going to write the after 4 hours of work. 6 hours of work, however long it was. Namespace game.data.ability. Public class Swarm decorator base card ability. Composite ability. We have the decorated ability here. Let me look at my base card. Composed abilities to add to execution. Composed ability. Oh, maybe this is going to be... This might actually be very easy. Yeah, this might actually be really easy. At the risk of being a little bit too confident. But I think I see a path forward. How did I do this before? Whatever. I think what I can do is I can use a query target provider. Query target provider dot query options dot custom filters equal to card. Get all composed abilities. I need to do get all flattened abilities. Get all flattened abilities dot any x is swarm decorator. I think that's right. Simplify link expression. Okay. So we're going to filter that down to the cards that have the swarm decorator on them. We'll add the query target provider here first. I think that will work. Sounds like a good solution. Could also make it a certain chance to trigger. Assume they shouldn't chain each other again and again. Yeah, they don't chain each other again and again. That definitely doesn't happen. In terms of like, they don't get like an infinite loop or whatever. So I think in here, we've got the decorated ability. We don't want to do that. We basically don't want to do any of this. Var result is equal to query target provider dot get cached targets. I think that's going to work. So we've got the cached targets here. For each var card and result, var swarm decorated composed abilities is equal to card get all composed abilities where yeah, I think that will work. So instead of add card to rerun execution list, we want to do, oh, we want to return, let's see. Execution result, composed abilities to add to execution. List base composed ability. Abilities to add to execution is equal to that. Abilities to add to execution dot add range, swarm decorated composed abilities. Composed abilities to add execution equals abilities to add execution. Okay, so what's essentially happening here is the query target provider is being added to the execution list. So this will be executed, which means that it will fetch all the cards that match this filter. So basically any composed ability where it's flattened abilities, so just the flat list of abilities in order as they'll be executed, any of them is a swarm decorator. And then it will do the same check essentially in here, get all flattened abilities where it's swarm decorator. So any abilities which have a swarm decorator on them that exist on other cards are going to be abilities to add execution. Now the problem here is that this is going to be happening as part of the problem is this is getting added to the list of cards or a list of abilities that this card is executing, but they're not abilities that are happening on the other the other card. So actually this is not going to be as easy as I thought it was going to be. That's okay. We'll figure it out. So when I added this to the rerun execution list, what the heck did I just do? Am I not in the right spot? What? Composed abilities to add to execution. Did I just lose where this was happening? Okay, something's buggy here. Maybe? Am I just getting lost here? Hello, Ninja Link. Welcome back. Good to see you. Oh, it's in the turn executor component. Oh, I see. Ah. Rerun execution list. So where is this being used? Am I using this anywhere? Run execution, card. So I might need to do... So add card to the rerun execution list, but I want to filter the abilities that are being called by those that have the swarm decorator on them. So I may need to... Add card to rerun execution list. So, I mean, one way to do this is to pass in a filter here. Add card to rerun exit. Oh, goodness. So maybe we make this a different object, like a rerun execution args. We put the base card in there, but then we also put a custom filter. And then what we can do is when we actually execute the abilities, I could put that into the execution context. So I could say execution context dot ability execute abilities to execute filter, something like that. That might be the way to do it. And then inside of here, I have the execution context. So what I could do is essentially just filter this abilities here. I think that's what I'm going to have to do. It's not the cleanest thing in the world, but... Okay, so let's do the first things first. Add card to rerun execution list. We're going to change this. Just make a little class down here. Public class, rerun, execution, context, base card, get init. We'll make this required. And then public func bool abilities to execute filter. So that would be null by default. So when we add a card to the rerun execution list, wherever that is, we're going to change this instead. We're going to do rerun execution context, rerun execution context, rerun execution list. Okay, and then down here, now I have to order this. All right. So if there are three swarm cards, or to be precise, 3 cards with swarm abilities, does it trigger each swarm ability 3 times? Yes, I think that's the way it would work now. So yeah, the first card would go, it would execute all of its abilities, including the swarm ability. The execution of the swarm ability would trigger the swarm abilities on the other cards. So yeah, that is how it would work. Maybe we'd have to change that, but we'll worry about that later. But yeah, that is how that would work. Here comes the sun. Yeah, it's right in my eyes. We were working on swarm, yes. Just add a boolean to the ability. Okay. What implementation did you decide on? We're going to basically make Swarm a wrapper for an ability. So it's basically just going to be a tag around the ability. And so the ability will execute normally, but when a Swarm ability executes, it will trigger the Swarm abilities of all of the other cards as well. So now instead of triggering an entire card that has Swarm, it will trigger just the one ability. Now I'm realizing that my Swarm enchantment is also not going to work anymore. But I think it could be... Yeah, we'll have to figure that out too. Seems a lot more balanced compared to the current version. Yeah, I think so. I think so. All right, var ordered is equal to rerun execution list, order by x dot base card dot get prior board inventory component dot get card priority. base card, return cell to sequential cell. Okay, so now I can do this. Get card priority. Okay. For each var, rerun context, run execution, base card. Okay. So that doesn't really help because I do need to get that ability filter into this run execution now. I'll probably just make this its own thing too. Run execution context. We'll just do that. And we need the turn context as well. Public required. Turn context, get init. Okay. Rerun execution. No. Run execution context. Cool. Execution context set abilities to execute filter. So I still need to add that in there, but I've got this run execution. There we go. And where else do we have it? Here. New run execution context. Yeah. Okay. Let me just make sure that I did that correctly. Rerun context, base card, turn context, execution initiator. This needs to be card. Okay. So I think we've got all the data going into the right place now. So now it's a matter of we need to run execution here, create execution context here, public func. Oh, this is not going to work. This needs to be IEnumerable base card ability, bool, abilities to execute filter. This needs to change to that. This also needs to change. Cool. Now, before I forget, I also think I probably need to duplicate this. Execution context with state. Got to add that new property into the duplicate. Can't forget that. Or the execution context with state, rather. So now in my base card, what I can do is I can say abilities here. We're going to do abilities is equal to abilities dot where x. Oh, let's just do oh, you know what? I did this wrong again. Oops. This is annoying. This just needs to be a single base card ability. How could I be so dumb? Okay, so in the base card, We might as well just do this. Okay. Actually, I don't know where my head is today. I don't know where my head is today. If execution context.abilities to execute filter is not equal to null, then we do this. Okay. Goodness gracious. So what was the point of doing all that? Now, we go to swarm, add card to rerun execution. Oh, so this swarm is actually... I'm going to basically change this to... Why does this need to be an iTarget provider? I don't know. Anyway. Ability explanations dot swarm. Okay. Anyway. So instead of doing this, this is not what we're going to do. We're going to do... So we have this custom filter up here already. So what we can do is we can do execution context.turn executor component.add card to rerun execution list. We're going to do a new turn executor component.rerun execution context. Base card is card. Abilities to execute filter is ability... is swarm decorator. Get rid of this. Return empty result. And yeah, I think that's fine. So we're targeting all the cards that we need to target, and then we're passing in this additional filter there. All right, well, I don't know if that's going to work. I actually don't have any abilities that have the swarm decorator on them. Trying to think if I need to use a base composed ability for this or not. I think I do. Ability builder. What am I doing with project? Oh yeah, this takes a composed ability. Okay. So maybe what I need to do is... Yeah, well, I'm just going to stage what I have here. I think I need to make this a composed ability, so I'm going to move that swarm decorator, actually. We're going to move this. Scenes, no, scripts, data, ability, composed, move that. Okay. So now if I go to my swarm decorator, here, data.ability.composed. This is a base composed ability. Implement abstract class. Oh, I don't want to do this. This doesn't need to be an eye composite ability anymore. I think this is what I need to do. I don't know. I don't know what this base description is either. Projected ability, get description, exclude prefix. This should probably be a base composed ability as well. I hope I'm not messing this all up. Duplicate internal. Swarm decorator. Turn new swarm decorator. Decorated ability. No, that's not going to work either. That duplication logic is not going to work. Oh, maybe it is. What does this duplicate internal do? Not duplicating the underlying ability, so I guess that's fine. I don't know, we're going to have to try this. What is this exclude prefix? Whatever. I don't know. We're going to have to figure this out. Won't be able to abuse it so heavily anymore. Yeah. There's some fun in abusing abilities, but it has to be at least a bit hard to set it up. Yeah, I agree. Yeah. Swarm is a pain to set up before, as you had to visit a lot of enchant nodes or get lucky with some alchemy. Imagine it will still be a bit hard to get going. Yeah, I think so. I think so. Have you thought about mod support, like custom cards, or will the game not have mods? I think mod support would require me to come up with a framework for allowing people to do that kind of thing. So yeah, I don't know. That's not something that that's not something that I have thought about at all, because yeah. Godot is pretty moddable by default. Yeah, I guess the thing is, I don't know how you would mod a C# Godot game. I guess you'd have to do some kind of rebuilding, maybe. I don't know. I don't know how that would work. Hello, Neozoid. Welcome back. Good to see you. Would you ever consider doing a project organization tutorial? I'd be curious to see how you take on how you prefer your folder structure. I may do that at some point, yeah. I don't know if there's a super easy thing to do there. Do you ever duplicate, or a super in-depth tutorial, I mean, do you ever duplicate your project and import when you're doing questionable restructures like this? No, that's what Git is for. So I have version control, I have Git. I can basically destroy my entire project if I wanted to, and I would be able to recover from that. Usually what I do when I'm doing a new feature, when I'm reworking stuff, I will create a new branch, and then I'll just destroy everything on that branch, and I'll only merge that branch back into master when it works. And if it doesn't work, then I just leave it to die on that branch and it never gets seen again. But yeah, if you're looking for a way to get peace of mind and safety when you're going and making a bunch of breaking changes, you need version control. You need version control, because you can always recover if you're doing it right. Okay, this sun is like, do you see this? Do you see this? How am I supposed to work with this? How am I supposed to do this? I was the living embodiment of the meme. The sun's coming through the guy's window and he closes the shades. You can inject into C#. That's how I used to hack Unity games. Oh, right. Yeah. Very insightful. Thank you. You're welcome. Always happy to help, Angela. And welcome back to the stream, by the way. Good to see you. So, Swarm. I have no idea if this is going to work. No idea. Maybe this isn't going to work. Let me think. Do I want to do a duplicate in here? I don't know. I don't think this is going to work. Find all implementations. Oh, gosh. So the problem is, if I don't duplicate the decorated ability, if I don't duplicate the decorated ability, then it's going to retain any state that it had through alchemy. That could be a mess. How am I doing it with project? Ability projector. Projected ability. Ability duplicate null. Oh, that's safe because I'm tightly controlling which abilities can be projected, although that may become unsafe at some point. So there's one specific edge case which I'm realizing is going to be a little bit tricky. But let's just do this for now. This won't work with things like where is that? If I look at my, what is the Corvid? If I look at my Corvid, conditional echo. So this is the problem where I think it's not going to work. Or maybe not. Hold on a second. What am I doing? Right, so I have this little piece of logic in here. If duplicated is conditional echo. Set card type filter for card get type, set card name. I think I just need to redo this, honestly. This that's being done here. So I need to find a way to redo conditional echo. Rework so duplication doesn't require a card reference, and move conditional echo to new ability system. So this swarm decorator is not going to work if it decorates a conditional echo, because the conditional echo requires a reference to the card to duplicate properly for a number of reasons, but we don't need to go into that. That is one edge case where this is not going to work. This duplication, that it's just going to brick the ability. So that's a problem. Swarm decorator, duplicate internal, but I do need to duplicate that decorated ability so that it doesn't retain any of its state when it gets duplicated here. Okay, so that'll be fine. I think we're at the point now where I can actually test this. I think. So we're going to go to the Skeleton Warrior just to be easy here. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to do new Swarm Decorator damage. Okay. So if I did everything correctly, that's basically all I need to do. So I just need to take a composed ability and wrap that in a Swarm Decorator. And it should work. Add card to rerun. Oh, this old Swarm needs to go away. So I will do something with that later. Sun, I thought you were a vampire. Yeah, well, that was about my maximum dosage of sun I could get every day. There's also an add-on Godot sandbox that I've seen used if you don't mind add-ons. Interesting, I'm gonna have to look that up. I think the big problem with supporting add-ons in my game though is not, I don't think like having new card definitions and new, like adding them to the loot table, like all of that stuff can be data driven with like raw files basically. The major problem is like, how do I define how the abilities behave, right? Because I've got this whole system of abilities in C#. And the question is, how would I expose that scripting to a player? Like, would I come up with my own like quasi-scripting language for card abilities? Or, you know, like just how would that work? That's the big problem, I think. Anyway. Let's go take a gander at how this looks. That is wrong, but that's okay. Let me see if this works. If I upgrade this... Oh, it doesn't upgrade. Okay, so I think I know how to fix that. The Swarm Decorator here. This needs to do decorated ability dot scale for tier. Okay. Just woke up. How you doing? I'm doing well. How are you doing, Snupbill? I'm doing well. Combining abilities and code, a beautiful concept that becomes more complex with each meta ability. Yeah. I think my system is generally pretty well set up to handle it. It's just a matter of figuring out how to wriggle the data through all the places where it needs to be wriggled, you know? Yummers. How do you expect it to work if you had 3 swarm abilities on the same card? Wouldn't the card trigger other swarms for every other ability execution when the abilities swarm with themselves? The abilities will not swarm with themselves. Like, so a swarm ability triggered on the card that is executing will not trigger the other swarm abilities, because when it looks for cards that it needs to trigger due to the swarm, it's excluding itself. So that's how the querying system works by default. If I ever do a query of the board from a card, from a source card, the default behavior is that the source card is never included in the result set. So that case should already be handled. As far as multiple swarm abilities triggering multiple, triggering the swarm multiple times, yeah. So what I could do is I could further restrict. So instead of making it all complicated, it'd say, well, did a swarm ability already execute on this card? If so, skip these ones. What I could do is instead of executing all swarm abilities, it could just choose a random swarm ability on the target card to trigger. That would be a little bit easier and probably would also help. So it would be guaranteed then that it would only trigger up to one ability on each other card. There's, you know, there's stuff to figure out for sure, but let's see if this even works to begin with. Skeleton Warrior dealt 4 damage, dealt 4 damage, dealt 4 damage, dealt 4 damage. Look at that. So that's exactly what I would expect to see if it was working. But you're right, it's going to trigger a bunch of other abilities as well. Alright, so just for the sake of testing this out, let's also do a lamb bone ring. And let's do new swarm ability, new swarm decorator ability builder dot bleed 2. And let's go grab the lamb bone ring. I'll make a copy bear a mod card, yeah. I just expose C# definitions for type and allow loading DLLs from folder, but that requires a certain scale for the player base. Yeah. How am I doing? Well, I certainly just woke up. I didn't care what to expect. Forgot to drink juice. But that's it, baby. Okay, well, sounds like it's going pretty well then. It's getting dark in here. Okay, so let's see. Is that working? Let's test this a little bit easier here. Generate test map, training dummy. Training dummy. We're going to get rid of the training dummy abilities. Well, we'll leave heal in there, but what we'll do is we'll go to the training dummy here. We'll turn this turn cooldown up so I can just observe what's happening with my cards. I think activating all the abilities on a card that have swarm would be cool. I was just thinking if you have 3 swarm abilities, it probably shouldn't cause a swarm to happen 3 times. Right. Okay, let's see what happens. So the skeleton's going to go first. I should see... Oh, they have the same turn cooldown. Dang it. Okay, let's do the ceremonial dagger instead. Okay. Let's see. So ceremonial dagger should trigger the 4 damage on the skeleton. Ceremonial dagger applied 2 bleed twice. Well, that's not ideal. Oh, I think I know why, because the skeleton is triggering the swarm again, so it's doing like a back and forth. I think I just forgot to do... If card base card is not equal to execution initiator. Execution. What? Execution context. Dot execution initiator is not equal to null. And the execution context of base card is not equal to the execution initiator. Where's this set? Okay. I think that was probably present in the old swarm ability too. Yeah, if execution context execution initiator is not equal to execution context base card. So actually, yeah, I just need to do that, basically. So this will never be null. We could put this up here, and we just return empty result. Okay, so basically, we're only going to add cards to rerun execution list if the base card that is coming in the context of the card that's being executed is the same as the execution initiator. The execution initiator will be different, for example, when another card tells a different card to execute. In that case, the execution initiator will be the original card that sort of delivered the command to the other card to execute. So this is how I know if this execution is running as a result of the card that owns this ability being executed, or as a result of a different card forcing this to execute. So I think that will fix that. That should clean things up quite a bit. Then we can take a look at this more closely. All right, so let's see. That goes, so we should see a bleed, and the skeleton did not do anything. You're useless, skeleton. You're useless. Why isn't that working? Well, I guess it's time to put a breakpoint and do it. Game looks awesome so far. Love the visual aesthetic. How are you handling resolution and viewport settings? The answer is I haven't done that yet. The game is just fixed to 640 by 360, and it just keeps the aspect ratio to fit the window. That's it. We'll see if I want to add support for, like, you know, non-standard resolutions, non-16:9 resolutions. In that case, what I'd have to do is just grow the width of the window, I think, which certainly would be doable, but yeah, I haven't worried about that just yet. But thank you, Jacket, and welcome to the stream. Good to see you. All right, let's see why this doesn't work. Boom. Okay. Execution context base card. Ceremonial dagger. Execution initiator. Ceremonial dagger. So that should skip over that. Result is equal to... Okay, so the get cache targets is not working. Custom filter. Oh, yep, that's why. Query target provider dot... Wait a minute. Query options dot query directions equals board inventory component dot query directions dot entire board. Why was it working before then? I don't know. I don't know. But we'll give it a shot. Okay. Get cards, still 0. Get cache targets. Why is that not working? I don't know why that's not working. Let me see. Does it even do the highlighting? It might not even do the highlighting. It's not detecting the other cards. At least it's not highlighting the other cards. Oh, I think I know why. This probably needs to be iTarget cached provider. Is that what Swarm was? iTarget provider. How in the world? And I can use this card has ability of type, so I should actually probably copy this as well into my swarm decorator. So this is not going to fix the issue, but that's certainly a little bit better. Query highlight component. What is this doing in here? Query board. I don't know why this isn't working. I wonder if this iTarget provider is being used somewhere sneaky. Let's see. If executing ability is iTarget provider, target provider. Yeah, so I do need to make this iTarget provider. iTarget provider. We'll implement this interface. Return query target provider get cache targets. We'll do result is equal to get targets. Execution context. I don't think this is going to do anything, but I do need that to be in place so that it logs the targets properly. Is it not working because you need to override void yummers? Potentially. Welcome back, Nick. Good to see you. I don't know why it's not working. I'm being relatively slow today too, so that's not good, but let's see. Oh, did I remove... What? Why did you not obey my breakpoint? Why is that not obeying my breakpoint? What the heck? Oh, it's back. Okay, we're good. We're good. Can I close this one? Yeah. Okay, base card. So yeah, result is equal to get targets. Why is this 0? I just don't understand why this is returning 0. The query target provider is being executed before the decorated ability. Oh, right. Right. Ugh. Yeah, it's the problem is the query target provider is being executed after this one. Shoot. This is all falling apart. I need to get that query target provider to execute before the swarm decorator here. Well, I know what the problem is now. It's just that it's going to be a pain in my rear to fix. Now I'm thinking that this needs to be changed back to a... I'm thinking this needs to be changed back to a normal ability now. Okay. Well, we're gonna have to play with this some more. No hot reloading Godot for C#. This should be a simple change, yeah. I don't know, I think there is hot reload, I just haven't gotten it set up. So I think I'm going to try a different approach to this. It's going to be a little bit of a wonky approach, but we all love wonky approaches. I think this needs to go back to being a base ability, and we have the decorated ability here. So this is going to need to be a composite ability. So I'm basically just going to model it after the conditional ability decorator here. So we're going to change this back to being a base card ability. Composite ability. Okay. All right. So I'm going to need to figure this out. Anyway, I'm going to take a quick 3-minute break, and then when I come back, we will figure this out. We're going to get this swarm working one way or another. We will make it submit to my will. So give me 3 minutes. I'll be right back, and we'll continue on. Okay, I'm back. Let's figure out how this swarm is going to work. Son of a bee. So we got an composite ability here. Let's see. We're going to borrow from this conditional ability decorator. I've got too much stuff open. So this conditional ability decorator, get abilities to execute. So we're going to put this down here. We're going to get rid of the query target provider, but instead what we're going to do is we're going to do public static query target provider default query target provider new. Okay, and we'll get rid of this. We don't need this anymore. There's no longer an abilities array. So we have the decorated ability here. We're returning the decorated ability in there. And then on execute, that should remain the same, or this is no longer necessary. Do we need to pass in the query target provider though? I think we do. Read only. So this is a little bit weird because I need the query target provider has to exist outside of this card, because a query target provider is an ability that needs to be executed and the execution order matters. So this actually needs to be executed first before the swarm decorator gets executed. So I need to basically have this query target provider being passed into this, but held elsewhere so that it has the proper execution order. Anyway, query target provider dot get cached targets. Okay. Scale for tier is no longer a thing. Actually, how does that work? Well, we're gonna have to figure that out, I suppose. Azir, can you stop? What? What do you want? Do you want to go on stream? Do you want to be famous again? Do you want to be famous again? I snatched you. I snatched you. I snatched you. Hey, you don't get to meow at me, begging for attention, and then squirm away. That's not allowed. That's not legal. All right. How does this conditional ability decorator work? How does this scale? Decorated. Interesting. Okay. Base damage ability, scale for tier. Okay, well. Yeah, I guess we'll just try this. We don't need this duplicate internal anymore. Do I need that duplicate internal? No, I think this actually cleans things up quite a lot now. I think this cleans things up quite a lot. So now what I'm going to do is, since this is back to being a base card ability, what I can do instead is I go to my ability builder now. And for this swarm, we're actually just going to replace this. Let's do swarm old. Public, static, composed ability. Swarm, composed ability, decorated ability. Okay, so we've got that. Return new composed ability. Query target provider is swarm decorator, default query target provider. We pass it into the query target, or the swarm decorator there. We have to put the query target provider there. The scaling function is decorated ability.scale for tier, and then we have swarm get description. I don't know what remove prefix is, but let's just do that. Okay. So now we've got that. So now here, this is ability builder dot swarm. Cool. And then here. Alrighty. 12th time's a charm. Let's do it. You're chunky. You're chunky. I'm talking to the cat, by the way, just in case you think I'm not all there mentally. He's right here. Right, bud? Do you have something to say? I was thinking for the swarm enchant, you can make it so that it triggers the other swarm abilities, but itself doesn't have any attached ability. Yeah, that could work. And actually, yeah, that would have to be done a little bit differently, but it's certainly possible. Okay, so let's see if this works. It didn't work. I'm about to lose my mind. I'm about to lose my mind. Okay, let's take a look at the swarm decorator. Let's put a breakpoint here again. Now we got to figure out what else is going wrong here. It could be the case that this has ability of type is not working. So maybe I should just check. Yeah, maybe I'll have to check that that filter is actually working. There's it's possible that there's something wrong with that. Result. No, this has a result. Okay, so this is working. So that should have returned the skeleton warrior. Okay. So then we add turn execution, add card to rerun execution list. This is the base ability, abilities to execute filter. This is a base card. Oh. I think this abilities to execute filter is not working. No? Oh, but this is being done after it's already flattened. Oh, I see. I don't want to do a filter here. Yeah. I think I need to move the filter up here. Not that it's going to help me here, because it's still not working for some reason, but this filter is wrong. If execution context.abilities to execute filter, composed abilities. I think I can just do this. Yeah, ability to execute filter. Well, maybe we'll just leave it generic. Composed abilities to execute filter. Jeepers. Well, we're gonna get this. We're gonna get it. You will see me struggle until I figure it out. Nope, don't change that there, please. All right, where did it break? Alrighty. We are still going to need to figure this out, but it's okay. Let's try it again. If it makes you feel better, I'm about to lose my mind too. It does make me feel better. Man, you set off to do something that you think would be relatively straightforward, and then it turns into a nightmare. It's alright. It's how it goes sometimes. How do you debug code? Are you asking, like, how do I actually set breakpoints here, or what's my general approach to finding and fixing problems? Got all these composed abilities. No, that's not going to work either. Let me take a look at this, though. I think I had it right the first time. I'm just confusing myself now. Composed abilities, query target provider, swarm decorator. So I think the problem here is this abilities is getting flattened down here. Oh, it didn't pass the check. Okay. Dang it, I think I need to redo everything that I just did. Did I stage my stuff? Please tell me I staged my stuff. Okay, kind of. Yeah, this can go away. Discard those changes. This can go away. Discard those changes. Discard that change. This is abilities to execute filter. Okay. I just need to change this filter a little bit, I think. Yeah. Ugh. Okay. All right, I think we're good with that. All right. Why doesn't it like this? Why does it think this is a... Okay, it's just bugging out. Reload the window. So, yeah, the problem here is that... Oh. I flatten all the abilities, which means, so if I put a breakpoint here, it's only going to include the swarm ability, but it's not going to include its, it's not going to include its children abilities. So my ability system is essentially a tree. You've got nested levels of the tree, you've got siblings and whatnot. And so what I'm basically doing is I'm just traversing the tree, making sure the tree executes in order. But what's happening here is that this filter, so we've got these abilities, this flattened list of abilities. You can see that this is adjacent scaled poison, query target provider. Oh wait, we gotta go to the next one. So this should be the skeleton. Yeah. So this is the skeleton ability. So you see this damage that's here ultimately. So we've got a composed ability. There's a query target provider. Then we've got another composed, this is a swarm decorator, right? We've got the swarm decorator. Then we've got this composed ability and then damage. So the way to read this is that, so this is all flattened. So this is the execution order. So the skeleton's composed ability, its root composed ability is going to execute. That composed ability contains within it a query target provider, so that needs to execute. That contains within it a swarm decorator, but the swarm decorator has child abilities, and the child ability is the damage, right? But the damage is also wrapped in a composed ability as well. So this swarm decorator is actually, it owns this composed ability and that composed ability. But what I'm doing when I'm filtering this is I'm filtering on that flat list. And what I end up doing is I end up just getting the swarm decorator. But of course, the swarm decorator owns those other two abilities. So if I'm going to execute the swarm decorator, I also want to execute the abilities that it owns. But so that's why it's not working right now, is because it's basically just executing the swarm decorator, but it's not executing any of the abilities that are owned by the swarm decorator. So, yeah. So that's, yeah, that's the thing. Now, I do have the ability to detect ability ownership. The question is, am I going to be able to do that inside of my swarm here, or swarm decorator? Abilities to execute filter. Base card. I forgot what it's called, like try get parent. Yeah, try get parent. So this try get parent Hmm. Parent isn't going to work either. So one thing I could do is I could do something like public bool ability has ancestor of type here. T. Yeah, I don't know. My general approach to debugging? Well, my general approach to debugging is, yeah, I mean, I think it depends on the nature of what I'm doing, but typically what I'll do is I'll first throw a bunch of print statements everywhere. That can usually help just narrow down like where things are. So if a function is not calling or it appears not to be working, the first thing to do is maybe put a print statement there and see if it even gets invoked to begin with. Of course, you could also use a breakpoint, but for my initial steps of debugging, I like to just test with print statements first because they're a little bit quicker. But if that fails and I can't really glean any information from that, then I'll go into the actual debugging and I'll step through and I'll put a breakpoint at the places where I was trying to print. I'll verify that the code is working and being called in the order that I expect it to be. And if I'm still stuck at that point, then I start looking at my assumptions. I start challenging like, okay, well, I was assuming this array to be full of results, for instance, but let me just double check the values in that array and make sure that they have all of the data that I would expect. And in this case, when I was debugging this, that's where I saw the issue, right? I had assumed that that array was working just because I was using a query target provider, and I'm very familiar with how that works, but there were no results. So then that clued me into figuring out, okay, why does that have no results, and so on and so forth. But you'll get better at that with experience. Yeah, staring at the code. I mean, debugging is a whole process, right? It's like, even part of debugging might be just like stepping away from the computer and thinking about it a little bit more. When you implemented the ability to drag cards into other cards and they shift positions if there are valid positions, did you struggle with that? Because I am. Yeah, that was very difficult. And I actually don't remember. I think I called it like displacement or something. Board placement state apply displacement. So yeah, basically what I'm doing is so the broad overview is that this is the code that is responsible for doing that displacement. And essentially, I think the theory behind it is I have the initial board state that I'm saving. So I'm taking a snapshot of the board state, and that's just where each card is positioned on the board. And then I apply placement. So I say, okay, what is the card that I want to place and where do I want to place it at? And this then fetches all the overlapping cards. And then it enqueues the overlapping cards that need to be displaced. And then it goes through that queue and it will check for the nearest valid empty position for that card. If it doesn't find a position, it just ignores. And if it can find a position, then what I'm doing is I am essentially trying to place the card at the new position. If that succeeds, well, I guess, yeah, if that succeeds, then it will set these flags here. I guess that's just for my gameplay logic purposes. And then it animates the displacement from the old position. But then what you have to do is you have to check for new overlapping cards. So that's what happens here. And And that's basically it. I mean, it's going to depend on how you've organized your data, but definitely what you want to do, I think, is you want to separate the animations from the actual data, right? So your data should change instantaneously. If you're going to move a card to a different position, that should change in the data immediately, period. And then if you want to show a visual effect of the cards like sliding into the new position, you just want to do that as a purely visual thing, but you don't want to connect the visuals to the data state at all, because that's going to make this a lot harder to do. So if you decouple the data from the visuals and you have the visuals being a response to data changes, then you can make all your data changes while you're doing the displacements and whatnot until you've got a valid board configuration or until you've tried all the possibilities. So that's essentially what I'm doing here. But it's been a while since I wrote that code, so. No has decorator. Yeah, I don't really have, like, the decorator pattern is not really a pattern that I have. I could make like a dedicated decorator type, but that's kind of what this is. Ability has ancestor of type. Touching grass and pacing are both great debugging techniques. I agree. Sleeping too. Sleeping too. Seeing how you did it, maybe I can figure it out in the end. Yeah, good luck. It is a hard problem. I remember I spent many hours getting that to work, and there were still some changes that I wanted to make to it, but it was already working. I couldn't break it. I couldn't find any bugs with it, so out of fear of like introducing some kind of sneaky bug into the problem, I just left it as it is, and I think it works pretty well. It's decent enough. It's decent enough to remove some friction from the player without being like perfect. Like, it definitely doesn't find the perfect solution for the card displacements. It just tries to make very dumb moves to like the next nearest empty positions in order to make room for the card you're trying to place. But it doesn't optimize it. Like, it won't reshuffle the entire board to make that card that you're hovering fix. It just says, hey, if there's an easy thing I can do to like part the cards and make room for this new card, then I'll do that. And if not, then we'll leave it up to the player to reorganize their own inventory. Okay, so I already did fudge puppies. Okay. I need to edit this filter again. Do I need to edit this filter? Abilities to execute filter. Yeah. So we want to have the base card as an argument here. Base card here. Execution context. Base card. Card.ability has ancestor of type swarm decorator ability. Ability is swarm decorator, or yeah, I think that's right. And then in my base card here, X, abilities to execute filter, execution context. Oh wait, can I just do this? Does that work? Am I using this anywhere else? Yeah. Let's rename this to ability. So now I should be properly filtering these abilities based on whether the ability is a member of that swarm decorator. Now, I think this would break if I ever had a situation where I had nested swarm decorators. But maybe not. I don't know if I would ever have a case, but I'm just trying to design this ability system in a way that, because it's a tree, it should behave like a tree. So it should be generic in the sense that I can do any levels of nesting or nesting of composed abilities or abilities in that tree, and should all just process properly. But we'll see. The greedy approach. Don't make it optimal if it works well enough. Right, yeah. Yep. All right, let's see what happens. So that's going to go. These abilities here. This should skip over that because there's no filter. Okay, then these abilities here. Where is the bleed coming from? Oh, is that the swarm ability I have? Okay, anyway. These abilities now, this is the skeleton abilities. So if I do this filter now, this abilities now should just be the swarm decorator, composed ability, and damage. There we go. All right, so let's see if this is working. I'm actually just going to auto-resolve this. And then let's just go here. I just want to pay attention to the combat log now and make sure that this works. So that's going to go, whoops. Okay, so this should have applied, so this applied 2 bleed, and this should have done 4 damage as well. Yeah, Ceremonial Dagger applied 2 bleed, Skeleton Warrior dealt 4 damage. Excellent. Now when the Skeleton Warrior goes, Skeleton Warrior dealt 4 damage, Ceremonial Dagger applied 2 bleed. Awesome. Okay, alright, so I need to get rid of the old Swarm. So this is basically a 1-to-1 replacement for the old Swarm ability, except now, well, it's not a 1-to-1 replacement, except now it will only execute abilities that are decorated by Swarm. So that should work. Gotta be real, this is a stupid question, but the docs in Google has failed me. I have a low in-game resolution no matter what font import settings I use, my text is blurry, what do I do? Yeah, I mean, if you have a low resolution, then you need to have a font that is built for that resolution, otherwise it's going to be blurry. You know, most fonts that you'll find are designed to be shown on a variety of resolutions, but there is a resolution that you can get to that's too small where no amount of anti-aliasing is going to help you. It's just going to look chunky and blurry. And that's why pixel fonts are a thing, right? So the font that I use in my game is a pixel font, meaning that it's built to be rendered at a very specific size so that it's sharp, right? So I think in this case, this is a 16 pixel font. So that means that the only way that this font is going to look good is if it renders at a size of multiples of 16. So it will only look good if it's 16 or 32 or 48. If I make it 18, it's going to look weird. If I make it 20, it's going to look weird. So that's just a consequence of how low resolutions work, you know? Because, I mean, if you look at the way that fonts are rendered on a high resolution, it's actually the same thing. If you were to be able to zoom in onto a high resolution font that's being rendered to your screen, if you were to zoom in enough, you would see a bunch of blurry, chunky pixelization that comes from the anti-aliasing. But the point is because there's such a higher DPI, it looks smooth. It looks, you know, high resolution. But when you have a lower resolution, when you've got a lower number of pixels that you're drawing to the screen, that aliasing or anti-aliasing is going to become a lot more apparent. Yeah. And yeah, there's no stupid questions, yeah. Is there any website that has free fonts more catered to game development with that kind of information? So what I would recommend is itch.io, of all places, has a lot of really good font pack, like pixel art font packs. So go to itch.io, look for like pixel art, pixel font or something, and then you'll find all kinds of free ones. You'll find all kinds of cheap paid ones. The licenses are generally very permissive. So even if you spend $2 on the font, it'll say you can use this in unlimited commercial projects. And they usually also come with documentation about what sizes you can render them at. That's where I get all my fonts, basically. By default, decorators are components of what they decorate. You kind of inverted this. Yeah, they're more like decorator containers, right? Maybe it would be nice if the log showed that swarm as what caused that trigger. Yeah, that is planned. The combat log is going to get a lot more sophisticated in the future, and I already am collecting a lot of the data that I'm going to need for that, but yeah, we're definitely going to have that, just probably not for this playtest. Was literally going to say itch. Yeah, itch is a great place for those kinds of assets. Itch and open game art. So why am I in here? Been checking out open game art itch now. Thank you guys. That all makes sense. Yeah, for sure. Combat log is going to be a real pain. Yeah, it can be. We'll see. And now I want to do the targeted cards, I think. So let's see. New execution result. What the heck? What in the world? Oh, I do need to make this an iTarget provider. I think that's necessary for the effect to play. Effect type. I think that's what I need to do. Oops. That needs to go there. Let me look at my other swarm. Yeah, targeted, okay. So now I should get a little effect, like a little lightning effect going to the other cards that are being affected. Yeah, that is another option for sure. I've seen people do where they have the game is rendered at a low chunky pixel resolution, but then they have a UI layer that is rendered at like the native resolution, so you get nice crisp stuff. So now we've got a little indicator that the cards are affecting each other. Okay, so I think that's basically like, I should be able to just replace this. So add new swarm ability. Okay, so that works. Now I got to figure out where this swarm is used and just delete it, which I'm just going to do that now. And we're going to see if we can fix everything here. Delete this. Remove. Oh, we need to move this swarm decorator here. This needs to be moved to ability. There we go. And I'll go to my swarm decorator. Game.data.ability. I guess this no longer needs to be a composed ability, but shoot. Well, we'll figure it out. Oh, the one thing I wanted to check is if that swarm ability explanation is being added. I guess I can't do that. Get rid of swarm old. We gotta fix the enchantment now. Okay. All right, projected swarm. Oh, how am I gonna project swarm now? Well, that's another problem we'll have to figure out. But we can do ability builder dot swarm and then ability builder dot bleed, like so. I have to check if upgrading works as well. Projected swarm, yeah, this is just not gonna work, so we'll get rid of that. We'll swarm the damage bank. That's not a composed ability? Oh, I guess this needs to be base composed ability. There we go. Okay, that should work. Goodness gracious. I could probably add swarm back to the spider too. Maybe not. I don't know. Pumpkin patch. Oh, this. This is the same thing. Project swarm to adjacent alchemical. I don't know if it's possible to project swarm anymore. I just don't think that that's something that I can do now. Well, let's just do this then. Wrap the heal in a swarm. Yeah, I can't project swarm anymore because now swarm is a decorator rather than like an ability. Swarm enchant, so I'm going to need to fix that as well. The battle standard now is completely useless, so I'm going to have to figure out what to do about that. Hello, Insane Patches, welcome. I love the color palette, it fits the theme of the game so well. Did you make the palette or did you find one? If you found it, did you tweak it at all? No, I found it on low spec and I didn't do any tweaking. I just used it right out of the box. And yeah. So yeah, I found the color palette, but all the art that I'm using with that color palette is hand drawn by me. Now I think of it, you could do some kind of funny effect, having a low resolution pixel character walk off screen and come up 10x closer to the camera in 4K with that approach. That is interesting. Yeah, you could definitely do that. Why can't you project swarm? Yeah, because it targets specific abilities now. The way the projection system works is it takes an entire ability and it puts it on the other card as a temporary ability. But now, since swarm has to decorate or wrap an individual ability that already exists on the card, it's a lot harder to get that to be a temporary thing because I need to construct the swarm decorator, put the existing ability into it, replace that in the ability list, but then after the next execution, undo all those steps. So, I mean, it's possible, it's just not, that is not something that's supported with the framework that I've built here. So we're gonna have to figure out something else about that. Swarm targets specific abilities. The card now, so the projection would need to target specific abilities. Guess it could target one random ability. Yeah. So the issue is having it be temporary. Yeah. And also, I'm trying to the best of my ability not to modify the underlying ability state of the cards. So basically, like, I'm trying not to reach into card abilities and change something about them. Like, for instance, wrapping them in a decorator of some kind. Because I think that's just going to be a recipe for disaster. So I'm trying to make the abilities as like standalone and agnostic as possible, and the execution the same deal. Like, the execution is basically just responsible for getting the list of abilities and calling their executions in order. Any temporary abilities or whatever, they're added to like temporary lists, but the point of those abilities being temporary is those are brand new abilities that can just be added to a temp list and then safely removed from that list when they're done. And that doesn't affect the original card state. So when the combat is over, when the turn is over, I can just safely clear those lists. And like, since those were transient temporary abilities anyway, they're not affecting the base card. But in order to do something like project swarm with what I have now, I would actually have to modify the abilities in the execution list. You know, I could perhaps fake it, where I could maybe mark an ability as it has to be skipped and add a brand new temporary ability, which is wrapped by the swarm decorator and executes in the place of that one, but is still treated as temporary. I don't know. It's like, there's a couple of ways I could do it. It's definitely possible. It's just, it's a little bit hairy. It's a little bit hairy. Swarm enchant. We might have to say goodbye to this one. Also, I need to look at the duplication. No, it should work. The duplication should work. With the decorator, the duplication is going to be easier. Yeah. So the ability builder. So this, whenever I duplicate a swarm ability, it's going to rerun this like constructor function basically. So it's going to create a new query target provider, new swarm decorator, And it's also... Oh, but the decorated ability... Oh, maybe... Yeah, maybe I think I need to do this. Duped ability is equal to decorated ability dot duplicate. Yeah, I think that's the way to do it. So we duplicate that ability and then we use this duped ability in there. Okay. It's a little bit wonky, but it'll work. It'll work. Okay. All right. And I made changes to the ceremonial dagger and everything. So I need to actually remove this. And the skeleton warrior as well. And did I make a change to the lambone ring? Okay. Let's just make sure I undo those. Well, it's fine. We'll just check. Build errors. Oh, the swarm enchant, right? I mean, I could just do this. I could just do ability builder.swarm ability builder.damage 3. I could just do that. Hey, swarm enchant fixed. Maybe I'll do the same thing for the battle standard then. So instead of adding swarm to an existing ability, I'll just add an ability to the things that have swarm on them. I think that'll work. Yeah. I am going to want to do this though. Action configure. Configure.invoke query target provider. So then my battle standard here, we will do var swarm is equal to ability builder dot swarm. Damage, we'll do 2. Query target provider. Tag filter is weapon. Directions left. Oh, wait. No, that's actually wrong. No. I don't want to configure this. No. I'm getting confused. Okay. So that's the swarm. This, we need to use the projection ability. Okay, this might actually work. So now I can do var projected swarm is equal to ability builder dot project ability swarm. That's fine. So now we do projected swarm. We'll keep the ceremonial dagger. We want to do battle standard. Okay, that should work. Yeah, the swarm enchant list triggering other swarm cards with no other effects would be a neat effect. Yeah, that would require some work as well, but can change that in the future. Can make a temporary ability that has a swarm decorator, but the temporary ability is the one that randomly fires abilities in the card itself when it's triggered by swarm. Yes, yeah, I think that would work. Part of the swarm, yeah. How are we breaking, fixing things today? Very carefully. Very carefully. Projects to allied weapon cards. Swarm. Deal 2 damage. Ooh. Now the problem is that going to be too hard to understand? Projected swarm deal 2 damage. So this should deal 2 damage. It dealt 2 damage and that went away. So if there were other swarm abilities on the board, that would definitely work. Does Maggot still have swarm? I think so, right? Okay. So now there's more tweaks that I can make to Swarm, but this has Swarm apply 1 bleed. Okay, so that needs to be updated, that description, but... So now we should be able to see that bleed and damage will be applied. So the Maggot's not going to do anything until I project here. So this has projected Swarm deal 2 damage. Terminal Dagger dealt 2 damage, Maggot applied 2 bleed, very nice. So these have the same turn cooldown, so let's just auto-resolve this. Auto-resolve, and then I'm going to flip the order of these things. Because what I want to see is if that projected ability... Well, I guess I'm not really going to be able to tell. I think that projected ability will be removed. Oh, wait, hold on, there might be a problem here. There might be a problem here. Projected composed abilities dot clear. Son of a biscuit. So there's a problem here. So the problem is the swarm will only trigger certain abilities here. The swarm will only trigger certain abilities, but the way that the logic works is it's actually going to clear all projected abilities when it executes. So if you were to project heal onto it that doesn't have swarm, if the card gets triggered by swarm, it will do a swarm ability or all the swarm abilities, but then it will clear the healing without ever applying the healing. Oh, that's fun. That's very fun. Okay, let me write this down. So rework swarm, projected swarm will clear, projected swarm execution. Swarm execution can or will clear any other projected abilities. Okay, update swarm description. Oh, I should have done this on a different branch, I guess, but well, I guess we'll figure that out. So now I got to figure out how to not clear the projected abilities that I shouldn't be clearing. Okay. I don't really know how I'm going to do that, to be honest. I suppose what I should do I mean, really, it's any ability that executes needs to be cleared. So I guess what I'd need to do in here is I would need to keep track. So instead of clearing these composed abilities, is that being cleared somewhere else? Yeah. Instead of clearing the composed abilities, I would need to perhaps just look at which abilities were executed, and for any ability that was executed that is also in the projected composed abilities, I would need to remove that. So we're making sure that we're only going to remove the ability after it executes. And if an ability was projected and didn't execute, then we'll just keep it on the card until it does execute. I think that would be the way to do it. Oh, you know what the problem is too? Shoot, this is a huge problem actually. The tick execution debus will also go down. So basically it's rerunning this whole code and it's applying the filter here. But the problem is that I guess I need to know if this is a swarm execution or not. Yeah, I need to know the difference between what's like a true execution and what's an execution that's triggered by something like swarm. Why do I clear projected with swarm? Well, projected abilities need to be cleared after they execute. That's the thing. It's not intentional. It's just that the way that the life cycle works, anytime this execute abilities is called, it clears the projected abilities. But now that swarm is triggering a rerun of this execute abilities on a different card, and we're applying an ability filter, what that's going to end up doing is that's going to end up clearing all of the projected abilities instead of just the projected swarm that should be cleared after it executes. Yeah, I have an execution context. I've got all the data. It's just a matter of figuring out a good way to do that. Anytime I have a situation like this, I usually like to just think for a moment and see if there's a different approach or if there's a clean way to implement the change without breaking too much. But anyway. Can I just do this here? Well, I think I've had enough swarm for tonight, though. It's a nice little 2.5 hour bonus stream for you, but I'll end it there. We'll probably work on this tomorrow morning, so if you're interested to see how this saga ends, definitely be there. Update all abilities to use. Update abilities to use new swarm. But yeah, again, if you want to support my work, you can check out the links in the description below. Yeah, thanks there, Savior. Appreciate it. Yeah, you can check out the links in the description below if you want to support my work. And yeah, I hope you all have a great morning, evening, wherever you are. And I will be back at it tomorrow at 10 a.m. Eastern, so I hope to see you there. All right, take care, everyone, and bye-bye.